Welcome, everyone. Season 4, Episode 4 of the Overseas Famous podcast. Matt and Kevin talking a little Euro League, a little state of the world address. Also today, really cool guest, Jacki Gemelos. Jacki, WNBA player. The crazy thing, Matt, talking to her, I didn't realize that she was the number one player in her class, which is always a fun thing, nationally to be the number one player in your class. That's got to be a pretty special feeling, especially in high school. I mean, how awesome would it be to walk around the halls of a high school? Because like college, you're kind of separated. You can find times to hide. High school, like you're just walking through those halls. And if you're the number one player, like you have to be just, people must be worshiping the ground you walk on.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at, I was looking at her resume before she came on, and she played for like the U.S. national team in high school. I think it was like the FIBA U18 team or something like that. And she was also like an All-American multiple times too. And it seemed like her high school before. Sorry, my Siri went off. What was I saying? And
you were talking about just like her work of art of just being incredible.
In high school, she was like a multi-time All-American, and then like the knee injury started hitting.
Yeah,
and I feel like that kind of like set her career back a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. That definitely took a hit. Four surgeries in.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And when we talked to her, it was wild for her to kind of, and all her stuff that she's doing with overcoming and things like that. It is wild because not many people would keep going if you were constantly getting knocked down. And the fact that she was just kept pushing. I mean, 4 knee surgeries, like all bad knee surgeries, not just like little nicks and knacks, like 4 bad knee surgeries. That's crazy. So the fact that she's able to have that success and still, like she was talking about when she was in college, and she kind of talked about she got drafted in the WNBA like based on how good she was, and it was just like, fuck it, we're taking this girl even though she's not playing because she's hurt. And that's a pretty high accomplishment for the highest level of basketball, to be like, we're taking you even though you just blew out your knee for the 4th time. So it's crazy.
Yeah, that really is a testament to just how good she is and how skilled she is as a basketball player.
Yeah. Did you how's this, you ever have the Siri? I feel like you said the Siri went off.
Yeah, mine literally just went off.
Yeah. I don't know what triggers it. There's times when I'd say nothing close to Hey Siri, and it will go like, and I just said Hey Siri, and nothing. Oh, there it goes. But it's crazy. I just feel like my watch just goes off half the time.
Yeah, right when you were talking, mine just went off randomly. I was like, then everything stopped.
Something about my voice is like very soothing to Siri. I feel like it hears it and it's just like starts talking to me, because mine goes off all the time in random places, and it's just like, and I set it to Australian for some reason. It was like one of those things where I was just kind of like bored one day, and I thought I just set it to Australian, and then I'm realizing that anything that I do on my phone now where there's like a voice or something, even when it's not Siri, is Australian now. I was like, that's pretty funny. So you got that little twang going. So that's good. But yeah, Jacki was just a tremendous interview and a lot of fun. And we kind of been talking about before, talking with Troy Barties, and a lot of the stuff that we were talking about with the Ukraine situation kind of has to be hit on before we jump into Jacki, because that shit's crazy. I mean, there's a full-blown war. Russia, and I feel so bad because there's American players and there's Russian players who have like no fucking thing to do with any of this, and the season is now getting cut short. But the people in charge, it's like Russia is now, there's so much boycott, so many things boycotted out of Russia that like Russia's economy is crashing. Yeah. And it's like these guys are getting paid millions and millions of dollars, and they're probably going to end up not getting paid, and that sucks. Like I understand it's war and there's way worse things, but shit, that still sucks.
At the same time, a lot of these guys' livelihoods are all at stake from this.
Yeah,
They're not going to be able to play basketball for nobody knows how long.
and we always talk about like that window of opportunity in your prime. It's small. I mean, you play for
Yeah.
10 years and that's a great career. I mean, that's a small window. So when you take away like even that little half a year, it's like it's going to take away from something. Now they'll get picked up, I'm sure, if things go bad, but like they're still contractually obligated. Like a lot of these guys are still contractually obligated to the team. They get sent home and they're relocated to another country right now, but contractually they still are obligated to that team. So they still have to come back, but they're not getting paid. So their contract belongs to them, but they're not getting paid because they're not doing work. And it's like they can't just jump ship and be like, okay, well, I'm going over to Spain where shit's safe and play, or G League or something like that. It's like, no, you have to just go and just wait it out. And that's the thing that sucks the most about some of these overseas girls and guys who are kind of stuck in this shithole.
Mm-hmm. And at one point, because of COVID this year, a lot of spots were open across the NBA. But now, like that, nobody's really getting hit by COVID. There's not all these spots available.
Yeah.
So these guys have to wait it out because the Euro guys are staying in Europe, and then because they're not going back to the G League because the G League guys are all healthy. They're all playing again.
And that's something I kind of hit on in the whole for one, but fuck, man, like these guys are the domestic guys, like the Ukrainian guys, even the Russian domestic guys, like they're now involved in this. And like for an import, that's like your teammate. So like suddenly within a month, shit went from playing a game together, no worries in the world, to now you're gone away from your team, and that teammate is now fighting in a war, and you're like, I can't believe this shit's happening. And that's just the wild thing about overseas basketball that a lot of people don't get, is how close you constantly are to like instability. And I think just people think it's such a stable, awesome thing, and there's so much instability with payment, with just like, I mean, we live in a country where, like I was saying, like we're not going to get taken over right now. Like it's not like that. So we live in a country where everyone can kind of go and there's not worry of a war breaking out immediately. But not everything is like that. And a lot of places are more calm, but every time you head to that Eastern European, like you should be kind of
You
like
never
freaked
know.
out.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the scary thing, especially that Balkan region. Like, man, people are intense and they get pissed real quick. So it's a little scary there. So we have a great guest today. Jacki is, like I said, a consummate professional. Is that how you say it? Consummate?
I think so.
I think so too. If I said it wrong, just let me know. But she is a professional. She's pushes through. She's now the head coach, or not head coach, but she's an assistant coach of the New York Liberty. Definitely going up and checking out a game this year. But Jacki Gemelos here on the Overseas Famous podcast. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. Overseas Famous podcast. I'm Kevin Owens. We are joined today by Jacki Gemelos, awesome athlete, overseas athlete, WNBA athlete, advocate for overcoming adversity, just an all-around amazing human being. Jacki, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, and I'm really impressed you pronounced my last name correct. So good job.
Listen, the cool thing is I follow women's basketball. I have a daughter who's, playing. She's 9, but I just always followed women's basketball. Even when I was overseas playing, we would watch the women's teams. I was always a big fan of basketball, and I'd watch everything. So as soon as I've heard of you, and you've always been a cool, role model for women everywhere because of the way you've overcome adversity and things like that.
Thank you. That's really nice. Appreciate that.
No, it's fun. I mean, you start out, the USC, and your story is kind of, if people don't know, your story is you go to college, you go to high school, you get hurt, you hurt your knee, same thing. And over that course, you have knee injuries, but you still get recruited, still go to USC. Take us through that, because growing up, like getting recruited, You have to be people don't understand how good you have to be to have a knee injury and be like, screw it, we're still taking, like, I don't care. She's that good. Take us through that process.
Yeah, so I tore my ACL for the first time the last game of my senior year in high school. And that was 2 weeks before the McDonald's All-American game. My senior year, I was actually the number one player in the country in my class. So going into my first year at USC, there were high expectations. We had the number one recruiting class in the country. I verbally committed to UConn when I was 15 and then decommitted from UConn to stay closer to home. So the whole purpose of me wanting to go to USC was to kind of put them on the map and kind of help them get to the level that they have been wanting to get at for a while. And, you know, I was closer to my family. I was going to be in California, just a very familiar place for me. So after I tore my ACL that first time, I had to sit out the McDonald's All-American game and then also had to redshirt my first year at USC, which was a super bummer for me. And then as the years went on, I consecutively tore my ACL 4 more times, so a total of 5 times in college. I only played in 52 games in my college career. I didn't play my first college basketball game until my what would have been senior year. So I had actually been off the floor for 4 years before ever touching the floor again. And I had 1 year injury-free in college. That was my 5th year. And then after that 5th year, that summer, I got invited to the World University Games USA Olympic trials. I made that team, was able to compete, win a gold medal in Shenzhen, China with Skylar Diggins, Della Don, the Agumakays, you know, just a tremendous athlete group. And then I came back to USC for my 6th year, and I went down December 19th, 2011 or 2011, and then had my surgery in January of 2012. That was my 5th ACL surgery. So I didn't get to finish out that season. So I missed January, February, March of that 6th year, that last season for me. So I didn't think I was going to get drafted, because who's going to draft someone who had 5 ACL tears and isn't even going to play in that next season, because I'll be rehabbing. So I didn't really have the expectation of getting drafted, but I luckily was the 31st overall pick and got drafted to the Minnesota Lynx. So that was kind of what I needed to still hold on to the game. And if I don't know if I wouldn't have got drafted, I don't know what it would have taken for me to continue to pursue my dream. I think everything happens for a reason. So, you know, I had something to work for and had, you know, a purpose to still play. Yeah, so that's kind of the series of events with my injuries.
That's crazy. Was there a time when you kind of go onto that to the USA team and you're kind of coming back from injury and you're like, okay, and you know, obviously Skylar Diggins, Della Don, they're on TV all the time and you're probably watching them, you know, in the tournament and doing great things. Were you kind of like, oh shit, like here I go, am I on that level right now? Or were you kind of like, yeah, fuck it, like I can do this, I don't give a shit, they should be worried about me?
Yeah, you know, I think throughout my injuries in that period, I really struggled with self-esteem and like confidence. And you know, my mentality definitely shifted for me. Before injury, pre-injury, I was the type of player that had that like mentality of there's no one on the floor better than me. I outwork everybody. I'm fearless. You know, there was just, I knew I was the best player on the floor. So I think throughout my injuries, I really lost that. And, you know, it's a combination of things that happen. Like you start to feel alienated from your teammates. You start to feel like you're alone and you don't really have like a purpose. So I I became sort of like, I went into a shell a little bit in college because I was just like, I'm not the number one player in the country anymore. I'm not that player. And it's more of like people are identifying me as the girl that keeps getting injured, the girl that has had all these ACL injuries. So I think I lost that like kind of like mindset, that it was very hard for me to get back. But I knew that making that USA team and actually even getting invited to the trial, which was 40 players in the country that got invited, and then they chose 12 to make the team. For me, it was, I'm invited on this stage for a reason because I can still play. Maybe I wasn't the best, maybe I didn't have that I'm the best mentality, but my game spoke for itself. You don't lose your natural, abilities. You don't lose your feel for the ball. You don't lose your feeling of being able to know where the ball should be and how it should be moved on the floor. So there's just things that you can't like lose based on injury. There's limitations for sure and things that you have to adjust to. So me knowing that I was back on that stage and then actually making that roster of 12 players. So that in my mind put me in a group of, I'm the top 12 college basketball player in the United States. So I'm getting back to that level, right? So it was a huge confidence booster for me, making that team, winning a gold medal, going back to USC for my 6th year. I was on that All-American kind of status caliber again.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely went into that camp feeling very, grateful to be there, but also like, okay, I'm arriving. I'm back. I'm coming back.
There's so many things that I ask that sometimes become selfish. Like I do the show and I want to get your story, and all these people want to hear your story. But then I selfishly ask questions like, I know your dad played at Weaver State. And when you were growing up, and then he played professionally in Greece. Was that something that you kind of, I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I'm just trying to figure out, I don't want to be that crazy parent who's like screaming in the stands, but at the same time, I want to push her to have that mentality that I had. But was it something that you kind of grew up with, having that mentality, like having a father who played? Was that something that was really important in developing your ability to overcome all of these different obstacles?
1000%. I mean, I have two parents that when you talk about overcoming obstacles, I have two parents that my dad is a cancer survivor. My mom's a 2-time cancer survivor.
Wow, that's awesome.
So I come from a family of fighters. And so I think that was just a part of me, like just from the beginning, is I have very strong parents that have been through a lot, and I've seen them overcome everything and not complain about it along the way. And as far as my dad being a basketball player and having that influence on me growing up, it was huge. He instilled a work ethic in me at a very young age. I started playing basketball when I was 7, and I played multiple different sports. I was able to choose whatever sport I wanted. I stuck to soccer and basketball competitively until high school, and then I chose just basketball. And that was not heavily influenced by my dad, but I knew that was his passion. So that maybe is why I kind of wanted to go more toward that way. But he was in the gym with me for countless hours every single day. He pushed me to be the best, and it's all credit to him. My childhood was absolutely amazing, and he gave me and my sister everything, all of him. Same with my mom. They sacrificed a lot for us to be able to do everything that we wanted. They worked multiple jobs in order to, provide us whatever they could. So we never went without. And I think if it wasn't for my dad, I for sure would not have been where I am today and like had the career that I had. He beats himself up a little bit because I had all these injuries, and in his mind, he's like, did I work her too hard? Did I overwork her? Did I, should I have not taken her from this practice to that practice? And you know, she's a girl, maybe her body wasn't, you know, fit for it. So there's a lot of things that he battles with himself, which, you know, I've heard through other people that he's felt like that, but he's never really told me. So like but what I could say is, like, if it wasn't for him, there's no way I would have been the #1 player in the country. You know what I mean? And he instilled things in me that are not just for sports and basketball. It's for life. So the way he pushed me, I would tell you to push your daughter the same way. You know, as long as she loves it, and I loved it. So that was it.
I feel like I had this towel to wipe away sweat. Now I'm going to wipe away tears with it. That was awesome. It's like, so, you know, just having a child and, you know, seeing it, like, you're the finished product of what happens when, you know, you have someone who's going to just push you, but in the right way. And that's awesome. That's like a really touching story. And I think it's good for all the people out there to hear, you know, how to positively push to get, you know, someone to be the best. And that's awesome.
Yeah, no, and I love that you're passionate about, you know, your daughter, and you know, how you want to kind of go into this, I guess, journey with her. I mean, it's amazing that you're even like curious about that, because I can you're going to do a great job.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Jackie, I'm 100% coming up to a Liberty game this year, because that's like the closest WNBA team to us. So that would be,
that's amazing.
Definitely something I'm coming. All right, let's get into overseas, because this podcast is called Overseas Famous. So I know the big thing, you know, when you're a WNBA player, it's such bullshit. And I've said this before, that for the women, you have to go through a WNBA season and then go overseas to really make the money to live a professional basketball player life. So you're pretty much doing 2 seasons. And a lot of WNBA players, that's tough. Was bouncing back and forth, like, you know, being WNBA and then kind of going overseas for some time. Was that difficult, or was that just something that everyone just got used to?
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point you hit a wall and you're just like, okay, I either need to sacrifice overseas season or sacrifice the WNBA season. And I know players that have done, you know, 10 years straight without a break. And like, it's not right, you know? And I think now women's basketball is reaching a point where other leagues are being created in the United States, like Athletes Unlimited, and things like that are helping this situation. But the experience of going overseas and playing overseas basketball is priceless, and just, you know, the best experience that you can gain on a person level, on a human level, but then as well as on a basketball level, because the games are so different. The game overseas is, you know, built for your mentality and learning and understanding how to play the game. You know, you play with such smart European players, and then the game in the WNBA is so, you know, it's a different pace. They're quicker, they're faster, they're stronger, they're better. Everyone is at a different level. So I think combining both styles of basketball really just enhances you as a player. And I really think that players still need that overseas exposure. You know, I loved it. I'm a big fan of overseas basketball. Like, that's where I made a big, I guess, like, I made noise, you know, for being an overseas player more so than I did in the W.
It's so cool. You played, you know, obviously we talked about your USA experience, and you end up with the Greek women's team, which is such a unique perspective, because not many people can say they played for one national team and another national team. That's like badass. When I was looking at that, I was like, that's one of the coolest stats. I don't think I've ever met someone who was a national player for here and a national player for there. It just doesn't happen. And that's super cool. So you kind of have dual Greek citizenship. and you were able to play. What was the Greek national team like? How was that experience for you? Were you kind of pissed where you're like, shit, I should be over there, but you're like, no, I'm cool?
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, USA basketball released my rights, which for a player like me that wasn't, going to be the top 12 player in the world, it was like, yeah, we'll release her rights. Like she's not going to be on our team. So why not release her rights to the Greek national team? Which was great for me because I still got, European basketball experience at the highest level. So playing in Eurobasket and world championships and things like that for a different country. That's just more exposure for me. So I was more passionate about playing for the Greek national team than I was the USA Olympic team. And that's because being Greek is rooted in me. And, my family is Greek. My dad played in Greece. My grandparents are from Greece. So I felt more prideful about putting on my Hellas uniform than I did my USA uniform.
That's awesome. And
yeah.
when you went over to Greece, did you have that connection to the old country? Were there people that you knew of when you went over there that you were able to kind of reconnect with your ancestry based on people that you actually have blood relationship with you?
Yeah. I have family that's there now, and I've made it. Greece is kind of like my second home at this point. Family there, friends that I've made by playing there. I lived there for 2 years. So that connection that I made with, Greek basketball and everything that came with that is something that is going to stick with me forever. That's not going to go anywhere. I'm hoping to buy a house there someday and actually have like a second home there,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just an incredible part in my career for sure.
It is really interesting to hear just the ancestry part of it, because I think there's not many people who can actually have the chance to go back to their homeland and be paid to do it and experience what you experienced.
Right.
Were the crowds, I just think about, like, I've been to WNBA games and stuff. I've been to NBA games, and then I played overseas, and I know the difference between NBA crowd and an overseas crowd. They were throwing shit at me. Was it the same with women's basketball? Like, were the Greek fans way more intense than like playing in front of a WNBA crowd?
Oh yeah, hands down. What country did you play in?
I played in Australia, Korea, Kosovo was crazy, Estonia, Poland.
Okay.
But like that, yeah. Kosovo, like that kind of Balkan region, it's like, just a hop, skip, and a jump from Greece.
That's Kosovo. That was like ex-Yugoslavia, like that yes. region, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I love that region actually. Like it's very similar to the Greeks, like that Balkan, region. They're very similar to how the Greeks are. Very intense fans. They were lighting like torches and shit in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to stop the game to like let the smoke out of the gym. Like my first team in Greece in Panathinaikos, it's a small gym, and you walk in and it just smells like weed.
Uh-huh.
So it's, you're like playing in that atmosphere. And it was just like my first year overseas, I was like, what is this? Like these fans they're fanatics. They're so, into it. And what I realize is when you're a part of a club, a big club that has a soccer team, global football, soccer, whatever.
Yeah.
And when you are a part of big clubs like that, who are passionate about the club, the fans are fans of the club. They might not necessarily know anything about women's basketball, but they come and support the team because of the club. So they're yelling and screaming and singing the whole entire game, and anytime you score or do something good, they're cheering, they're clapping. It's just like an unbelievable experience that you don't get here in America.
Yeah.
Fans here are a lot better. They're more polite. They're fans, like they can't do anything illegal. Like we don't allow those things here.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely which you know very well. It's a huge difference.
Yeah, the fans there will just straight up throw shit at you and tell you what's going on. Fans here will just smile at you and then fucking go on Twitter and talk shit about you.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
So going into your transition from, and there's also, I played in arenas, like the weed smell, I definitely get. Like I've played in places where I'm like, I feel like it's like 50% air and 50% weed right now. Like it's the ratio could shift either way because I'm like, am I high right now?
I know.
But going into, was coaching always in the back of your mind when you were kind of knew you were like, all right, this probably is my last season? Was coaching something that you really was always in the back of your mind?
Yeah, I think it always, there was always a question of, will I coach? Where will I coach? What level will I coach? I never really wanted to coach, but I knew that it was going to present itself and it was going to pop up. I didn't know that the WNBA, level would come so fast, and didn't really have any expectations of ever coaching in the WNBA. I more so saw myself on the college level, with, younger kids and in a group where you're actually teaching and coaching. So when I was presented the offer with the Liberty, it was more of like, oh my gosh, like this is something that I have to take, because it was so detrimental to me when I had to retire from playing.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, what now am I going to do? Like, where's my life going to shift to? And not really knowing what that was going to be. So I felt like it was just the perfect situation and the easiest transition for me to make, from retiring and then to still be in the WNBA, just not physically playing. I would still mess around and practice with the girls, I wouldn't full on practice with them, but I would do certain things. So I still felt like I was a basketball player. I still felt like I was so close to the game. So it was just like, wow, like I couldn't have asked for something easier, So I think that transition for me really helped me. Even fast forward now, just like I still feel very much intertwined with the W and women's basketball. So it was great.
That's awesome. So last thing, Overcome, your brand. What is Overcome? How can people help the cause? How can people sign up? How can people buy the merch? Because it's incredible, and I think your story is incredible. So the Overcome is kind of your story in general.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I started the Overcome brand 3 years ago. I just kind of wanted to create a platform for myself to kind of be able to talk about my story and the things that I went through in my career. And I think I touched on it earlier. I've been kind of labeled and known as like the girl that overcame all of these knee surgeries, all of these ACL surgeries. So throughout, these last 8 years in my professional career, I can't tell you how many messages that I've gotten from people that have read my story and that have been inspired by it. People that have reached out to me to help them through their injuries. So I just really wanted to kind of showcase that and just have some sort of merch line or something that I could do to kind of express everything that I've been through and feelings that I've felt throughout the process. And what better way than to put it on t-shirts or, make clothes. It's always been kind of something that growing up and going to school in LA, seeing all my friends like have clothing lines and, kind of express themselves creatively that way. I felt really strong and passionate about, and I wanted to do something similar, but why not like tailor that to the people that are going through injuries and dealing with adversity in their sport.
So awesome. Well, Jacki, this has been truly a pleasure to sit down and talk to you. I love what you're doing. I'm very excited to see, watch a Liberty game and watch you coach and just see how you like it and how you're enjoying it. And obviously a tremendous overseas career, a tremendous WNBA career, tremendous career overcoming everything. It's a pleasure to have you on, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Likewise, I'm really happy we got to meet and I was able to come to your podcast.
I'm excited too, because I'm going to see, when I watch this, I want to see how this occasionally, I'm just going to fast forward to see how this like eventually got darker, lower.
You can't even tell. No,
All right,
no,
good.
no. You really can't even tell. You're good. I promise.
All right, I should have shone it in the light. Awesome. Well, Jackie, thank you so
I
much.
do need really quick. I do need to get one of those overseas famous teas. I love
I
them.
got you. We'll connect and I will get that right out to you because they're
Yeah,
fun.
maybe we could do a swap.
Oh, absolutely. Funny thing is my office has like some extra inventory. So I have, like 10
love
shirts
that.
that I'm actually trying not to step on right now. So we're good.
Perfect. That works.
Awesome. Well, Jackie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for having me. It's great talking.
It was great talking.
All right.
Have a good
See ya.
one.
You too.
Jacki Gemelos, Overseas Famous Podcast. Great interview. Great time. Check out Overcome. Check out all that she's doing. And we will see you guys next week here on the Overseas Famous Podcast.